The forest was ink and silence. No stars, no moon, only the whisper of frost cracking on branches. A lone soldier crawled through the dark, breath shallow, compass buried in his palm like a relic of faith. Behind him, the world burned in muffled flashes. Ahead, only the void waited. The enemy's patrol lamps swept across the snow, brief flares of false light. He pressed his face to the earth, heartbeat sinking with the frozen soil. Somewhere east lay the border, freedom, the promise of dawn. But direction meant nothing when every tree looked the same and every shadow lied. The map was gone. The stars were hidden. Only instinct and memory remained. He felt for the tiny shard of mirror tied beneath his sleeve, polished smooth weeks ago. When he angled it low, the faintest glimmer of moonlight revealed a bearing. Southeast. The reflection was no brighter than a spark, yet it carried all the certainty left in him. He moved again, inch by inch, carrying that sliver of light. Through a world that wanted him blind, the forest breathed around him, and the night kept its secrets. It, too, wasn't men that broke most soldiers. It was the landscape, cold, hunger, and the silence between heartbeats. Those were the real predators. Behind enemy lines in 1944, the terrain itself was a weapon. Rivers froze mid-flow. Forests swallowed trails, and clouds smothered the stars. The enemy could afford to wait. Nature couldn't be bribed. Thousands of Allied scouts and downed pilots vanished not by bullet but by bearing. Lose your sense of direction in that endless gray, and the world folded in on itself. The mind began to lie, insisting that north was east, that safety was near. Fear distorted magnetism. Even compasses faltered near the iron-rich hills of Europe, their needles trembling like frightened things. Those who survived learned to read the land differently. They followed light not from the sky, but from earth, the faint glow of moss, the slant of dawn against bark, the dull shimmer of water on windless nights. They became students of subtlety. The soldier moved through that invisible war, the one between trust and perception. The forest watched, unkind but fair. In its darkness, the true enemy was never another man. It was disorientation itself. Maps, in those days, were fragile confessions, paper too thin for the truth they carried. Each contour line was a prayer disguised as ink. Soldiers memorized them in fragments, burning the rest before capture. Navigation was not merely science, it was survival. Theater, the art of pretending to know where you were when the world erased its signs. Training, manuals taught celestial, bearings and magnetic declination. But out here, clouds erased the stars. Compasses bent to minerals, and fear disrupted memory. So men adapted. They learned to read wind direction by the slant of smoke, to track distance by the rhythm of their own steps. The soldier, name lost to time, carried none of that on paper, only habits carved by repetition. He counted his paces between landmarks, noting the angle of his shadow when morning came, even faint as ash. Each choice was a conversation with the land. Do you still remember me? Will you let me pass? Behind him, battle raged unseen. Ahead, the quiet geometry of the forest offered both guidance and grave. In that stillness, the map was no longer an object. It was a state of mind. Fatigue became a geography of its own. After 3 days without fire or rest, the body began to forget itself. The soldier's fingers stiffened around the compass, unable to tell metal from bone. Hunger sharpened him into something half animal, half prayer. He followed faint gradients of light through the canopy, each patch of pale gray sky above a clue, a direction. The trick was not to look for brilliance, but for difference. True north was revealed not by brightness, but by absence. The forest's northern sides were always colder, the bark damper, the moss thicker. He learned to listen for silence as others listened for sound. When a crow broke that silence, wings slicing air like a signal, he froze. Crows meant carry on, and carry on meant men. He adjusted his path southward, trusting the unseen logic of survival. Every movement became deliberate, patient, reverent. He was no longer escaping. he was aligning. With terrain, with time, with something older than orders. By nightfall, when he found a clearing lit faintly by phosphorus from distant shells, he didn't hide. He watched the light fade, measuring the world by what remained after its disappearance. The discovery came not in triumph, but exhaustion. Somewhere near the Polish border, he stumbled upon what looked like debris, shattered lenses, fragments of aircraft glass. But when he lifted one to the horizon, it caught a faint glow invisible to his naked eye. Phosphorescence, the same principle used in old watch faces and compass dials. He realized that certain paints, coated with radium or zinc sulfide, glowed just enough to be seen when shielded from direct moonlight. Not bright enough for enemies to notice, but perfect for bearings. He built his system in secret, shards tied to thread, hidden inside sleeves and belts, marking cardinal directions through the faintest gleam. To move by invisible light was to cheat the night itself. That night, when the sky vanished again beneath clouds, he raised his arm and found the east glimmering softly, a private constellation made by his own hands. It wasn't invention born of genius, but of necessity. Soldiers learned that the smallest control, one shimmer in the dark, could mean the difference between life and disappearance. And so began a quiet revolution of light. Word spread in whispers. Units cut fragments from downed aircraft, scavenged luminous paint from cockpit dials. Scouts carried compact lenses sewn into buttons small enough to evade inspection. Even medics joined in, marking stretchers with faintly glowing strips to find the wounded at night. Light became language. Coded, invisible, personal, those who learned its grammar could navigate forests without moon, cross marshes unseen, orient themselves by what could not be seen by others. The soldier, once alone, found his craft mirrored across units. In Italy, commandos used glowing compass cards shielded by red cloth. In the Pacific, naval navigators learned to chart by the ghost horizon, a dim luminescence, over water that revealed east long before sunrise. Each method carried the same principle: control light. Don't trust it. Too much revealed you. Too little erased you. He moved now not as a fugitive, but as part of an unseen brotherhood, those who learned to see without sight. Behind enemy lines. Light was no longer a comfort. It was a blade, sharpened by restraint. Every flicker was both salvation and signal of death. After the war, the techniques dispersed like embers. Explorers, mountaineers, and later survivalists studied what the soldiers had learned. Night navigation, they called it, but it was more philosophy than skill. How to read the faintest cues. How to move through chaos by disciplined observation. WWII veterans taught that light is not a thing to seek, but a thing to interpret. Too often, modern eyes drown in abundance. Street lamps, screens, flashlights, but the human mind, stripped to simplicity, becomes astonishingly accurate. The soldier returned home and taught recruits in a forest training ground. He never told them his name, only this: if you can find direction in darkness, you will never fear the light. His methods shaped the early field manuals of wilderness survival, influencing Cold War pilots and Arctic explorers. Even today, preppers trace their compass reading habits back to those lessons. The discipline to trust subtlety, to respect night's intelligence. Knowledge outlived the war. The invisible line from his trembling hand now runs through generations of those who still walk into uncertainty, carrying the same invisible flame. Light obeys physics, but survival obeys psychology. The science behind those WWII tricks was simple. The human eye's rods are more sensitive to dim light than cones, especially when adapted to darkness. Too much exposure and night vision resets. Those who shielded their compasses or covered flashlights with cloth were unknowingly preserving the chemistry of perception. But beneath that science was something deeper: cognitive navigation. When the mind is denied landmarks, it defaults to instinct. Internal mapping shaped by motion, memory, and rhythm. Soldiers who survived long in darkness learned to trust kinesthetic sense, counting steps, feeling slope and wind direction. Preppers today mimic the same neurological dance. Avoid light blindness. Let eyes adjust. Move slow. Trust the echo of your own breathing as a compass. WWII's forgotten navigators didn't conquer the night. They synchronized with it. They discovered that survival wasn't resistance, but calibration. The light they carried wasn't just physical. It was mental, a steady signal against panic's pull. To endure was not to see clearly, but to believe that clarity still existed somewhere beyond the dark. The world has changed its brightness. Where once men feared darkness, now they drown in glare. We flood our homes and skies with artificial suns, but the instinct that once saved lives still hums beneath it all. Modern preppers, explorers, and quiet thinkers return to those lessons, learning again to see the invisible. They practice low-light drills, map by shadow, train their eyes to silence. Because in disaster, the grid dies first, and the world returns to the same black forest where that soldier crawled. We inherit more than technology from war. We inherit intuition refined by peril, the ability to orient when all signals fail. Every time a prepper marks a path by glow stick dimmed under cloth, or guards their night vision during blackout, they echo the same lineage. The past is not gone. It is latent. Those who study survival know this. Light is not just what guides us. It's what tests us. And when the darkness returns, as it always does, the ones who remember will not fear. They'll simply adjust their eyes and begin walking. The forest from that night no longer stands. Bomb craters filled with rain, roots swallowed the last footprints. But sometimes, under the right moon, a faint phosphorescent shimmer rises from the soil, remnants of luminous paint and memory, mingled with time. It is said that light never truly dies. It only travels. The soldier's invention, born of desperation, became a thread connecting past and present, soldier and survivor, night and dawn. In every modern compass that glows faintly green, in every prepper's guarded flame, his legacy endures, proof that wisdom is not invention, but remembrance. We live now surrounded by light, yet we understand it less than those who crawled through its absence. Perhaps endurance begins not in strength, but in the decision to keep moving toward the faintest glow. The war ended long ago. The principle remains. Find light, shape it, trust it, but never depend on its abundance. They never lit a fire, but somehow they became it.